Hello there, and welcome to yet another Kings of War battle report. This time it's Ogres versus Elves in the Secure the Field scenario. So in this scenario, there are two locations on the battlefield, two pieces of terrain that you want your units to be within 3 inches of to count their unit strength towards your high total wins. So fairly similar to the Dominate scenario, except there are 2 points on the battlefield that you are contesting rather than just one large one. And here we go, straight in. So this lovely lava mat, link in the description below, and some very fitting terrain there. I'm sure you've all seen plenty of green, luscious hills growing in the middle of a terrible landscape like this yourselves. So you can see that we've got a hill over there. There's another hill on the left, just off camera. We've got some difficult fields here. We've got a few obstacles around the place, some impassable height 4 terrain, these 2 portals, and height 4 woods as well. So the piece of terrain that were chosen to represent the objectives in this game, we choose one on our opponent's half of the table. So I selected this wall right here, and my opponent selected this portal. Now, the reason I went for a very, very small piece is because a lot of my unit strength is very, very compact. With Ogres, you have these hordes that are worth a lot of unit strength, but they're not as big as certain other armies' hordes, with them being large infantry. So you can fit a lot of them around a small piece of terrain, whereas the Elves, for example, you can see an Elven horde takes up much more space, almost twice as much. So he's going to struggle to get that many of them around small little objectives. Had I chosen something like the woods, he would have been able to have tons of units around it. So I've gone for a very small one. That was my logical thinking there. Always thinking about the scenario. So there's that wall and the portal that was chosen by my opponent. And to go through the lists here, the Elves, they do have some Dwarven allies as well, by the way. An interesting, strange bedfellows alliance there. So there is a noble chariot. There is a chariot regiment there. There is a hero that can fly on a big beastie. Behind there, there's a bolt thrower. It's a bit obscured there, but they're always dangerous. There are some... I think these are Silver Helm cavalry. Silver Helm and Silver Breeze are the 2 kinds, I think. There are some Palace Guard in the centre, and this is the Dwarf contingent. So there is Earth Elementals, a Greater Earth Elemental, and the dude that surges them, whose name escapes me right now. And there's the Silver Breeze, I believe those ones are, the kind of shooty, less hitty of the Elven cavalry. A horde of archers. There is a standard bearer behind there, and some forest shamblers at the back there as well. And I believe that is everything. So, on we go, onto the Ogres. We have got my list right here. Now, this is very inspired by some Ogre lists that I've seen doing quite well at tournaments recently, so I've tried to steal a few elements of those just to try them out, a few different things. I can't copy the lists exactly because I don't have the right models, but I've taken 1 or 2 elements. So, we have some Ogre Warriors with Dwarven Ale right here. We have 2 Warlocks. They both have Wind Blast. One of them has Scarlet Moor's Venulian Amulet, taking his Lightning Bolt up to 5. The other one has the Black Iron Crown, boosting all his spells by 1. So I believe the Venulian Amulet is the one with the big totem there, and the other one is the Black Iron Crown. Behind them we have Grokkagamok, who is almost must-have. Then next to them we have Grokkagamok's Braves in a horde, and they're very tasty. Then we have a Chariot Horde, because I can't leave this model out. We have 2 Shooter Hordes, one with Blessing of the Gods, which is the one with the bird on the base there, and one with the Chant of Hate. So just making them a little bit better. And then over on this flank, we have a Warlord on a Chariot, who doesn't have anything special. The Chariot Horde, by the way, has Blade of Slashing, just to use up those final 5 points. So what is my game plan? Well, if we look at the overall battlefield here, then I shall tell you. So my 2 shooter hordes are in a position where they do not need to move for the entire game now, because they are both within 3 inches of this area, so lending their unit strength to it. So that is their plan. They're going to sit there for the whole game and just shoot. Everything else is going to advance on the middle. This huge block of meat here is going to head towards that wall. But even if I don't win the fight, I want to hold up the enemy long enough so that they're not going to be able to get enough of their units around objectives. That is the overall plan. So I've got unit strength of 6 near this one that just isn't going to move, and I'm confident that they can survive the game, hopefully. Because the enemy shooting, they've only got really these 2 units over here, which I'm also going to be shooting at. And it's possible the chariot horde could go over there to help, and I've got this guy as well. The bolt thrower is all the way on this side, so I assume that's going to be focused on this block of meat here. So if I end up with a unit strength of 6 around one of the objectives, my opponent will struggle to replicate that with what he has, I think. We'll see, though. So let's get back to where we were. So the vanguard move, the forest shamblers move up as fast as they can. They're on this side of the table, staring down into this area here. And there's the roll off for the first turn choice. I win, of course, with the orange dice, and I'm going to go first because ogre shooters are capable of taking things out in the first turn. One option to consider if you're playing with Wind Blast is taking the last turn, because then you have the possibility of wind blasting your opponent's units off of objectives. So that was also running through my mind, but I thought there's a few units of shooting on each side. I would like to get the first shot in before he advances too far onto my shooters, because they're an integral part of my plan. So I decided to just go first and move up everything in a pretty straight line. I don't want to move into anyone's charge range in the first turn, ideally. And then I'm going to be firing off shots. So this unit, 3 damage onto the shamblers. This unit, 5 damage onto the Silver Breeze cavalry. So good start on those. And the wizards, I put 2 damage onto the Silver Helm. And that's that. So those were some lightning bolts done there. And now we're on to the elf and dwarf turn 1. So the chariots over on this flank are threatening my flank now, so I'm going to have to turn the warriors around to face them in a minute, so I'm not getting flanked. And all of these elementals units move up into the woods so they can see out. So if I want to charge in there, there's going to be hindrances. And then over here, the archers have moved up onto the hill so they can shoot, and everything else has just advanced a little bit. He's obviously not too eager to engage with the ogres, but what do? With the bolt thrower's help, they put 8 damage onto the chariot horde. So chariot hordes, they're good, but once they start taking damage, you've got a lot of points invested there in something that's looking a bit fragile. So I'm going to have to throw that in now, because another turn of shooting like that could kill it. So it's going to have to get into combat next turn, ideally. And turn 2, and that's exactly what I do, because I don't want the chariot horde just to be immediately killed with shooting without even seeing any action, so it goes straight into the earth elementals in the forest. Charging chariots into a forest used to be a terrible idea, but now with the change to Thunderous Charge, you only lose 1 for making that hindered charge now, so it's a bit more worth it. I've got these warriors facing the chariot threat over there, and I've turned Grokkagamok to face that way as well, assuming these 2 units are going to be coming in. Over on this side, I managed to kill off the forest shamblers with this unit, and I also finish off the Silver Breeze cavalry with that unit. So he's only got the archers over there that are of any real threat now. So part 1 of the plan is going well, of taking this right flank and making sure I dominate the shooting fight that's going on over here. And you can see the chariot horde only did 8 damage to the elemental horde, which isn't going to be enough to get rid of them, but it's a start, and he doesn't have any healing that I can recall. So I'm going to be able to finish off units, hopefully, with shooters later on. And I've got quite a lot of lightning bolt to play with as well. And you can see how it looks from this angle. I've positioned all my units so that this bad boy can't flank charge anybody. And I don't think he can actually reach the old Grokster. He does have the Brew of Haste, so I'm not sure whether I left Grokkagamok in or out of range of that guy. We'll see in a second, I suppose. So you can see that the elementals have gone back into my chariot horde. They've also been assisted with a flank charge from this unit of Palace Guard. And this guy here, I'm not sure how much of it was intentional, because I think he was just moving up to provide inspiring to the greater elemental. But this unit, when they went into the flank, they then didn't slide any further down, so they're quite far away from my lines now due to his presence. This unit got wavered previously, by the way. I'm not sure if I took a picture of that, but the lightning bolts did waver that cavalry unit, so they can't do anything. The chariots do go into the warriors, though. And then we've got the standard bearer positions himself in front of the archers, which is risky because I've got a chariot warlord down there. So if I kill him, I could then overrun into them. And they put some damage onto that chariot warlord I just mentioned. You can see that the big chariot horde gets munched alive by those 2 units. The Palace Guard are actually very tasty. They don't have many attacks, but underestimate them at your peril. Grokkagamok's finest, Braves, take 6 damage from the Greater Elemental. and these warriors barely take a scratch from the chariots. So that's how it looks at the end of that turn. This cavalry unit still haven't got in there. So the plan is going all right so far, I suppose. The chariot horde, it's a shame to lose them so early, but I feel like they would have just died from shooting had I not thrown them in this turn. So it's going kind of according to plan at this stage. Turn 3. So the warlord on the chariot does charge into the standard bearer, does 5 damage, but can only waver him. So now he's going to get flanked by them, probably. The shooters, there's a picture of them, but I'm not sure what they actually did. Oh, they moved this unit. I moved them up because there was nothing for them to shoot, so I just thought I'd reposition them so they can fire more into the middle of the battlefield rather than on this flank, which is rather occupied at the moment. So Grokugamok's finest, swing back at the elemental, do a bit of damage to him. Groki and the warriors go into the chariots and kill them off, and I leave them facing this way. Now, this is possibly a mistake, leaving Grokugamok facing in that direction. So I wavered this cavalry with shooting, which of course, from the lightning bolts, which of course I only found out after I'd already decided to charge him in. But when I killed them, I possibly could have turned him to face a different way. I was concerned, however, with there is a flying beast still over there, which hadn't been thrown in yet. He was waiting for the support of this cavalry, I think. So I didn't want to turn Grokugamok's back on that combat and stare over here at the palace guard. So there is a potential rear charge on Groki now. There's also a chariot of his on that side as well. So turn 3, we have a triple charge. The flying beastie, we have all the elementals piling into Grokugamok's finest braves. And then the palace guard, yep, like I said, they take the rear charge on Groki and a chariot in the front. Now, I'm not very confident in his survival. Now I know that of the palace guard's stats. At the time, I was thinking he might be all right, because they were making a hindered charge. But elves, even when they make a hindered charge, they're still going to be hitting a lot with that elite that they always have. So the warlord on chariot gets killed due to the flank charge here. Grokugamok gets killed, which isn't ideal. And that's how it looks at the end. So the chariot's in a position to be charged by these warriors, and I've got my warlocks kind of untouched there. The braves go down as well, so this is not looking good. We're losing a lot of units here, and I didn't have that many drops to begin with. So turn 4, I fire off with the shooters, and they put some damage, just chipping away slowly at the enemy archers. In a war of attrition, I'm quite confident I can come out on top there, but we'll see, because I do have this unit as well that can also see them. But they decide to shoot Mr. Wingy Pants, who you can see is facing this way due to the arrow, but his wings were poking someone, so the model wasn't actually facing that way. Wave at him, so that's handy, because now he's not going to be able to go for anybody. Then we've got the warriors here, killed the chariot and turned to face this way. And with his lightning bolt, he wavers that unit of Silver Helm cavalry again. I think that's what they're called anyway. If I'm wrong, I'm sure someone will correct me. But they've been wavered for basically the whole game so far. So that's how it looks. And the plan is kind of working. Just the hold everything up strategy in the middle has maybe been accelerated a bit, and I've lost units a little bit faster than I would have liked. But it's still not too bad at this stage, because I can kill some of these units that are already wounded before the end. And I should have the unit strength superiority if these two can survive. Turn 4. So the elven archers decide they've had enough of having the shootout, and they just charge into the ogre shooters, which is interesting, but it also means that he's now within scoring distance of this piece of terrain. So should they just end up in a stalemate that lasts the whole game, they will be scoring. The palace guard go into the warlock, the ancient elemental goes in there, the greater elemental, and they're going to get killed. So, yep, 1 down, 2 down. 2 dead warlocks, so I don't have many units left now. The shooters take 5 damage there. So we'll see how that one goes. So at the moment, I only have 3 units left. The 2 units of shooters, which are crucial for my plan, and this unit of warriors. So I can hopefully take something out with them before they die. And this unit of elementals were surged in his turn forwards, which was almost a terrible mistake, because it almost sent them up to about here, which would have meant a flank charge for my shooters. As it stands, they're still going to get shot, and they've been surged out of inspiring range as well. Turn 5, so my shooters put more damage on his archers. It's going to be a close one. And these shooters kill the elementals with their shooting. So the unit strength is looking quite good for me now. My warriors, who are barely scratched, take out his cavalry that were wavered for the entire game in one go. So that's really good. And it's looking pretty close at the moment. That's a really close fight. These guys are virtually untouched. These are virtually untouched. And I've managed to pivot them out of the Palace Guard's arcs. They can still be charged by the elemental and the flying hero. So if they can survive that charge, then I've got a pretty good chance, I think. At the moment, I've got a unit strength of 9 on the table, and he's got 3 there. There's 2, so there's 5, 6, 7. Only a unit strength of 7 for him on the table right now, and lots of them are not near the objectives. So turn 5 for the Elves. The Standard Bearer moves. The Bolt Thrower has a shot as well. Both of those combined put this unit of shooters up to 4. The Elven archers don't get too much more damage onto the Ogre shooters, so I'm fairly confident in this fight now. Over here, though, you can see that these 2 big monstrosities kill off my Ogre warriors in one go. So I've only got shooters left now. So I could have done without that, really. And now I'm going to have to focus on taking out his sources of unit strength. So that's how they pivot to turn at the end there, mainly aiming to hide from my shooters. Turn 6, possibly the last turn for the Ogres. So this unit finishes off the Elven archers, so that's more of his unit strength destroyed. And this unit here, they shoot up the Palace Guard, because they're the highest unit strength unit he's got left, worth a mighty 2, but can only put 5 on them and can't remove them. So that's how it's looking at the end of my turn. So he's got some shooting left. He's got the Standard Bearer. He's got the Bolt Thrower. So if he can kill one of these units, he's got a chance. Turn 6 for the Elves. So the Standard Bearer, yep, manages to kill off that unit of shooters. I think he only put another maybe point or 2 of damage on them, but that was enough. So they are dead. So now I'm down to unit strength 3. And the way he positioned, I thought it was possibly a mistake. He put a unit strength of 3 surrounding this wall with 1 monster and a regiment. He had another monster that he could have put within 3, but he wanted to leave it so it was in charge range of that unit if there's a turn 7. So he actually left it more than 3 inches away from the wall. So if it ends now, then it'll be a draw. Since that unit's dead, it would be 3-3. But no, there is another turn. So turn 7. And the Ogres, I need to shoot down. If we go back, I need to shoot this regiment. That way, the only way that he can avoid defeat is by charging me with his bird and killing the Ogres. If I can kill them, that would be the only way he can avoid a loss. So let's see if I can kill them. The Ogre shooters fire into the Palace Guard, got them up to 9 damage, but can't roll high enough to remove them. So that means he's basically going to auto-win now, because all he has to do is fly his birdie back to this wall and win the game. Let's see if he does it. Or in fact, he could even just charge into my Ogre shooters and collect the points of being over there and have a chance of killing them. But instead, he elects to shoot at the shooters, doesn't finish them off, but they are claiming that area with their unit strength of 3, and he did surround the wall at the end with a unit strength of 4. So it is a victory for the Elven and Dwarven Alliance. And that is the final image there. We were playing this under Clash of Kings conditions, so we were enforcing the chess clock. You can see I had 16 minutes left because I didn't have that many units and lots of them died, so the last couple of turns are very, very quick for me. My opponent down to the final 37 seconds. So all in all, this Ogre list, and I need a bit more practice with it, obviously. I think I was a bit too suicidal with some of my units. On the other hand, I was against an army where not piling in was going to be punished, because Elven shooting can be very dangerous. Bolt throwers and the archers, everything having elite, really. It guarantees a certain amount of damage. Anything that doesn't have elite seems to have less of a guarantee. If you look at some of my shooty lists I've used in the past, like my Goblin Rock Lobbers, sometimes they'll be amazing, sometimes they'll be terrible. So you can't really rely on them. But with Elves, with that elite just giving you the ability to re-roll, it seems to level out the reliability of them somewhat. So you can count on how much damage they're going to do a little bit more. and they were able to capitalize on some of my units that were left facing in directions that they wouldn't have liked to. I wouldn't have liked to be ideally, and I think I can possibly work on preserving my units a bit more. I was a little too gung-ho in the middle, throwing their lives away, happy that I was sticking to my game plan of controlling this area over here, which almost worked. As you saw, that unit was possibly a bit unlucky to be killed by him, and in which case I would have likely won the game then. But you never know, because he could have easily killed that unit with this guy as well. His shooting also could have gone better in the last turn. But that is that. It is a victory for the Dwarves and the Elves, defeat for the Ogres, and still some things to work on. The Wind Blast, I didn't make the most of that, possibly. It's a difficult list to enforce my will against with the Wind Blast, because he had a lot of speed superiority, so even blasting people away, they were still able to stay in a position to charge with the really fast hero, and there was cavalry units. So maybe not the ideal list for that, especially with this shooting as well. The Wind Blast is ideal for when you're coming up against an army of similar speed. You can prevent them setting up multi-charges on your units. If you've got things like Ogres that are difficult to kill with just one unit, you need multi-charges on them to kill them in one go. So Wind Blast is a good way of preventing that from happening. Anyway, it was an enjoyable game, and if you have any comments or questions, any corrections, if you think I was doing anything wrong, or if I got names of units wrong, I'm sure you'd love to point that out in the comments. And let's scroll back all the way to the beginning in record time. As I wrap this one up, there is another battle report coming soon as well, in which I put out my goblins against a fairly similar elf list to this, but without dwarven allies. So you can look forward to seeing that quite soon. And we're heading into Clash of Kings season, and I'm mixing up, trying different things in my goblin list for that. So it's going to be very, very exciting times ahead. It may be one of the final times I use the goblins for a little while in tournaments, because my Rordian army is almost ready. I'm actually working on 3 giant infantry hordes now, and my halfling Iron Beast. So you can look forward to seeing that, seeing which model I'm using to represent that very soon. And I will say good night out there, whatever you are.